Hey, what's up, y'all? Jesse here. Southern Reels, hanging out in my shop on a rainy weekday, which is nice because it actually gave me a chance to get some stuff done around the house. But I want to talk about trout fishing. I've been out 2 consecutive weekends in my kayak behind me, and it was very cool because they were two completely different experiences based on the weather. First weekend, it was cold, and the days leading up to that day of fishing, it was cold. Second weekend, it was different. We hit a warming trend that Thursday before. I went Saturday, which is this past Saturday, and it was almost 70 degrees out there. So it changed the experience out on the water, and I wanted to share what I know about this and how I managed to catch fish both trips. Now, the first trip, it was slower. I'm not going to lie, there's colder water temperatures definitely slow it down. And I'm talking, when I got out there, it was 47, high 47s. The highest it got was about mid 49 degree water temperatures. And the fish were lethargic. At that point, they're very sluggish. They were hiding in the deep holes, the edges of the drop-offs where they roll off into channels, the bottoms of the channels is where the fish were. There was nothing on the flats. I know because I looked with the sonar. Trolling bite was non-existent. Your typical cast and retrieve bite, mirror lure bite, all of that was nothing. I didn't find anything in that manner. The way that I caught the fish was using like a finesse tactic, ultra patient, lightweight jig head on a soft plastic on the bottom in these deep holes and channels. I was using an 1/8 ounce jig head with a Z-Man shrimp profile in a dark color. I would just cast it out, count to about 20, 25 seconds for about 20 foot of water. That would give it time to get to the bottom and just let it sit. Just lift it a little bit, about a foot, let it drop, reel in the slack, let it sit. And that's pretty much the method that I was using in these holes, these channels, these edges of the drop-offs where it meets the channels were good. And I was catching the trout like that. And they were pretty nice trout because there's some big ones down there hunkered down trying to stay warm. And the crazy thing is when I was using this tactic and lifting it very slowly and letting it drop, and I would let it sit for 5-10 seconds and then go to move it again. When I would go to move it again, there would be weight on it. And I learned very quickly that that was a fish. I would swing at it, and that's how I was landing the trout. I never actually felt the trout bite. 95% of the trout I caught that day, I never actually felt them bite it. They just kind of sucked it in and laid there. It's crazy. When I would go to move it, there's fish. So I run very quick to set the hook. And that's how I would land a fish. All the other tactics didn't produce anything. Also, I saw that using scent really didn't seem to make any difference, which is weird. The trout are like that. They're weird like that. I tried gulp. Same shrimp profile in a dark color. Didn't catch anything on that, which I thought was very odd. The Z-Man soft plastics and the voodoo shrimp were actually working very well. That's how I was catching the fish on the cold weekend. I probably caught about 12 to 14 keeper size, most of which were over 20 inches. I think the largest that day was about 22 and just shy of 23 inches. So it was a good, slow, patient day. A good tactic for that day is if you're in a boat or even in a kayak to cast a couple lines out, let it hit the bottom, stick it in a rod holder, and just drift with the wind or with the current. Now this day there was hardly no current, so I was getting away with very lightweight jig heads. You know, if the current picks up, you might have to go up to 1/4 or 3/8 to effectively get it to the bottom. So that was the cold weekend. Now the whole following week in between went by. We hit a warming trend on Thursday. I went fishing this past Saturday. And that day it got up to almost 70 degrees and things changed. The water temperatures started out in the high 49s and quickly hit 50, 51 degrees that day. That was enough of a difference to wake these trout up. They started roaming on the flats in schools. My guess is they're taking an advantage of a warmer day to get up and try to feed some before they really hunker down for winter. The mirror lure bite was on. Retrieving soft plastics was doing pretty good, but not as good as the twitch baits. Twitch baits were working really good in the flats, basically, 2, 3, 4 foot and less. Now there were still fish down in the channels. The other method was still working. That bite, of course, was still ultra slow and patient. I would much rather have a shallow water bite. To me, that's just way more fun. But the flats were cooking. I mean, there were schools there. I could see them on the Panoptics swimming around. I tied on a Paul Brown soft plastic mirror lure clone. Basically, it's a soft plastic mirror lure that sinks about the same rate as the 18 MR does, the heavy mirror lure. And they were tearing it up. That's a nuclear chicken color, I think. I had a blast fishing that bait on and off the rest of the day. Fished one particular area. The bite slowed down because we got quite a bit of traffic there. So I hit it a ways upriver. Got on another flat and the bite was absolute fire. I mean, there was a school of probably 50 to 100 trout that I saw swimming around, circling this flat. It was amazing seeing it. The catch was just unbelievable. So my point to this is crazy, the difference that just a few degrees in water temperature makes in the behavior of these fish, and learning that, and the proper techniques to use depending on water temperature. Basically, I'm saying if you're below 50-degree water temperature, at least in the river that I'm in and from what I've learned, you're better off to fish the deep holes, the bottoms of the ledges to where it rolls off into these holes, the channels themselves, and finesse fish. Basically use as light of a jig head as you can get away with based on the current and the wind, and still be able to know that you're on the bottom. Cast it out, count it down. I would count to 20 to 25, make sure it's on the bottom, and just slowly work it back to you, and you'll catch fish. It works. On the warmer days, you can go back to your typical tactics that everybody likes to use, the mirror lures. Even though trolling still really wasn't producing this particular day as well, to me was a bit odd. Usually trolling is very effective for trout fishing, but the last 3 trips that I've been out, it hasn't worked, which I thought was pretty wild, at least not what we were trying and trolling. And I have one buddy that's all about trolling. He wasn't doing well at all, fishing the exact same waters that we were banging them on mirror lures in. So who knows? I do know that trout sometimes prefer a mirror lure one weekend, one day, 1 hour, and then later they want us off plastic. So they're very funny fish when it comes to that. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was cool to see the difference weekend to weekend. The second weekend, I easily caught over 25 keepers. Most of them, if not all of them, were over 20 inches. Biggest one that day was 24 and a half. It was an incredible day. I had a good time. I would show the footage. Honestly, I've got killer footage from the weekend, but because it's the river and you can easily tell where I'm at, and I don't want to go to the effort of having to blur all that out because that takes a lot of time, and I'm just over that. I'm not going to share it right now. I may share it, in the down season. Just out of respect for the other anglers that are out there, and to show that I do realize that, spot burning is a thing. But it's no different than you being out there fishing and every boat that goes by that day seeing you over there fishing. Any angler in his mind, at least me when I'm on the water, as I'm driving around out there in my kayak or boat, I'm taking note mentally of every single person that I see on that water and where they're fishing, and even how they're fishing. Just when I'm going by, I pay attention to those details, because that's a spot that one day I'm going to go try. That's the same thing. I guess, putting it on YouTube is worse. Naturally, more people see it, but still, I get it. I understand. But also keep in mind that one thing I have learned about the river is it's different each year. Every time I've gone there over the past 6 years and fished that river, the fish are always in different places for the most part. It's not consistent. It's not the same year to year. It changes. That's what's up. I just want to share this information. Hopefully it helps some guys out this weekend coming up. Just remember, 50 and down, have some patience, fish the bottom. Just give up on trolling and your normal casting of mirror lures. Hit the holes, hit the channels, hit the ledges. That's where they'll be for the most part. 50 and up, have some fun, because most of your techniques will work. So peace out. See y'all in the next video.